Welcome to the Popish Plot. I'm Nate.
I'm Jessica.
And I'm Mike.
Today, we're here to talk about the Didache.
Well, we are starting a new series. Because in the past, we did a whole series of books by people who aren't saints.
Mm-hmm.
So I thought...
Old Scratchy.
Yes. Again, it's urban legend that Thomas a Kempis was not declared a saint because he was buried alive in his late 90s and tried escaping.
But it's show canon.
Yes.
Not actual canon, but show canon.
Oh, that old
not
Scratchy.
actual canon.
You had me a little concerned there for a moment because I'm like, I don't think the devil wrote a book.
Oh, he's written many books.
But I mean, like under his own,
Sure.
Yes,
fair enough.
But that
Known
would be
to pen.
Old Scratch. But anyway.
Oh, old Scratch, yes.
Although I do enjoy Ambrose Bierce's The Devil's Dictionary. Sorry, but that's neither here nor there.
But anyway, so I thought we'd go over books that aren't in the Bible. Now, much like the episode on people who aren't saints, this isn't like the, Gospel of Thomas, definitely heretical stuff that, never had a chance. These are things that we're going to go over books that some people thought should be in the Bible.
Mm-hmm. Because God did not give us a list. There is no saying of Jesus where he says, all right, there's going to be a guy named Paul. You don't know him yet, but you will. He's going to write 2 letters to the Corinthians. Maybe a third. You're not going to have that one. and he elucidates every book that's in the Bible.
He's got 2 also going to the Thessalonians. Another one going to these people in Ephesus.
If anyone written by someone named John, it's just an entire page of him saying, love people. That's right in.
So, because there isn't that, it took a while, first of all, for the books to be written, because the church comes before the Bible, because the church was out preaching the gospel before anyone wrote it down.
And depending on which ones we do, some of them might be books that almost made into the Old Testament, so, even farther back.
Yeah, and then there was dispute about which books belonged in the Bible. There was dispute among the Jewish community at the time of the Lord's earthly ministry and afterwards, and then there was dispute among the Christian community, finally being settled in the 300s with some church councils and then reaffirmed by full ecumenical councils.
Yes. The list was first set down in 382 in the Council of Rome, and was affirmed multiple times after that, and then the Council of Trent in 1546 also did kind of a thing. But even then, as we are dealing with, we're only of course dealing with the Catholic Bible, they didn't say no other books are in the Bible, just that these books are in the Bible, and they usually use criteria such as either an apostle wrote it or an apostle affirmed it, because, none of the Old Testament is written by an apostle. Lots of prophets, but no apostles. It was used in the early church for their services or for reading and preaching, and it had nothing heretical in it. So technically...
that last bit is important.
Yes, so technically, if we get together with the Eastern... Ethiopian church that has like Paul's shopping list as one of their Bibles.
Have so many books.
It'll be something where
they'll all be okay.
Yep,
because they're not verboten. Just these books are definitely in.
We can't take books out, but adding them is allowed. But the criteria is pretty slim right now.
And contrary to what your not so friendly online Protestant will say, the church never took books out of the Bible, unless you're talking about like First Clement.
Yes.
But that was never formally in, even though it was sometimes read liturgically.
Yes. So today we're going over the Didache, which is Cody Greek for teaching. It's also called the Lord's Teachings through the 12 Apostles to the Nations, or the Teachings of the 12 Apostles.
And the word Didache, or it's fun to mispronounce it, Didache.
Don't do that.
It's not, the title's not as mysterious as it at first seems. Think about the English word autodidact, or something that is didactical. So we already know this is a word for teaching. Here you have the Didache, the teaching of the 12 apostles.
It was written in the 1st to the 2nd century. Most biblical scholars and people who study it say 1st century, but there are some who are like, it's actually a little bit older.
Yeah. But even so, the oldest dates are the 2nd century.
Yes. It has a number of sections. It has the way of life / the way of death, which is the teachings of the apostles, which it kind of seems like the cliff notes of if you had like a book report on like all the gospels and you needed to know like what were the important things, that were, moral things, not, life of Jesus, but, what to do or not do, just crammed in there, just like a list. All right. Don't murder people. Don't steal people. Don't like the 10 Commandments are smushed in there with a lot of stuff about witchcraft. And
don't hate anyone, but make sure that you do reprove sinners, because that's what we do out of love. Yeah, and though most people suspect that the Didache is an early catechism, perhaps the first catechism. They're not trying to present the whole life of Jesus, but how do you actually live as a Christian in the world?
Yes. And then after that, it has stuff which includes the most widely known quote from the Didache of how to baptize someone.
Spoiler, you don't need full immersion, despite what some will tell you.
Although it does read like a ever-increasing, desperate list. Okay,
Yes.
If you have cold running water, use that. If
Ideally,
you
do
have still
this.
water,
If you
use
can't
that.
do that, do this. If you still don't have that, do this.
If you have to, I suppose you could use this.
It then has a number of like early Eucharistic prayers and how to do the Eucharist. As the Lord's Prayer, and it says that it was common at that time to pray it 3 times a day. It has rules for when to fast. It has rules for when the apostles or prophets visit you, and information on early church hierarchy. The one thing that it might have been kicked out of being part of it for the it wasn't quite heresy part, but it does suggest that essentially apostles or a prophet isn't really apostle or a prophet if they stay with you more than like 3 or 4 days, which
If they
Paul
linger,
has words.
If they linger, yeah. Well, but at the same time,
I don't know. That might actually give a lot of credence to in a number of Paul's letters. He when he talks about having stayed somewhere for a while, he does go and point out that he did work in order to
Yes, it
alleviate
does include
the cost of
you need to work. But
yeah, it's important to note that in the sections that talk about yes, absolutely welcome wayfarers, but if they stay for more than a few days, put them to work. Yes, it's not just they can't stay. But they have to be up to something productive, not just loafing about being like, I'm so great, you should all listen to me.
Yes. Other reasons that people have thought that it is not in the Bible that are not Protestants who are like, it has them doing things that we don't do.
It doesn't baptize the way that I baptize, therefore it can't be real.
Right. Include the fact that it has a lot of overlap with Matthew, Luke, and Revelation. Because again, it's taking a huge section of all the, rules of morality and just throwing them in one after another.
Yeah.
It reads more like a catechism in parts. In other parts, it reads more like a church manual or
So like a combination catechism missile.
Yes.
A set of rubrics.
Yes. It has a number of things that were church disciplines at the time that aren't dogmas that, we don't do now. Like, yes, if we are going to fast, the most popular days are Wednesdays and Fridays, again, outside of Lent when you're required. But it's not that you have to do it this way. And it's not that you have to do it this way and not these other days in a slight diss to the Jews.
Yeah, I recommend these days, not those days.
They do it on Mondays and Thursdays. How dare they?
No, of course. Again,
I think it was actually Tuesdays and Thursdays. But,
we have to recognize the context where there were lots of people who were Christians and were trying to make sure that all Gentiles became fully Jewish before they could really be accepted in the Christian community. And the church said, no, don't do that. So it was something that the church had to, fight against.
And the last thing I saw was, although it's listed as being by the 12 apostles, which, I mean, I suppose they're counting the replacement to Judas as the 12 in this.
Matthias is a totally legit apostle.
Seriously.
Yes, I know.
Even though they don't have a statue of him in the Lateran. Dagnabbit.
I'm just saying.
Yes.
Clearly Judas couldn't have written this, so it had to be the other 12. It's largely thought that it wasn't so much that the 12 actually, got together. And, it's like, all right, in the upper room, let's make up some rules or something. But it was like, we took bits of things written by the 12 collectively and not necessarily each individual one and put it there. So,
well, and
which,
there's nothing...
again, doesn't stop it from being in the Bible because,
Yeah, but
Luke
one reason why
wasn't
it's
a
not
disciple.
is there's nothing innovative in the Didache. There's no new revelation. It appears just to be guide of how you put into practice the things that have been divinely revealed.
Mm-hmm.
So that argues against including it as part of the divine revelation.
Yes, and even early, church fathers who were like, I don't think this is the Bible, are like, but you should still read it.
Yeah. Well, even for those who, don't like what it has to say, it's still an important document of this is the earliest non-biblical Christian document. This is arguably the earliest non-biblical Christian document we have. So it tells you what people were thinking in the church in the 1st or 2nd century. If nothing else, that's valuable. Because you claim, well, I saw a YouTuber who said church history was like this. Well, here's the Didache saying, no, the early church baptized like this. No super soakers, sadly.
No.
But principally, that's almost certainly just a technological hurdle. They didn't have the technology.
I mean, I'm sure at the point at which they're like, all right, some still warm water can be used. The next one down would be like, if you have a super soaker.
If all that fails.
And you have a object with a mechanism in it for distributing water at an advanced pace.
Make sure you shoot them in the forehead 3 times. That's so cool.
Yes. I'll start, getting a bit to the instructions for the holy hand grenade there. 3 shall be the count, and the count shall be 3.
3. Thou shalt not count 2 unless it is immediately followed by 3.
5
Neither shall
right
thou count. Neither shall thou count 4. 5 is right out.
But one of the fascinating things about the Didache is that it was always known from references to it in other early Christian writings, but for a very long time, we didn't actually have a good copy of it.
Which I find somewhat interesting, simply because, although yes, early on it was clearly agreed that it was not the Bible, it wasn't like some of the other things where it's like, you can read it if you want to. It was like, no, you should totally read it.
You should probably read this. It's
And
like the Catechism. It's not the Bible, but you should probably read it.
So you think, some more copies would have been,
Sure. But again, but because it wasn't Scripture, and
Yes.
they did burn a lot of our stuff.
I can either go and save a gospel, or this book of rules and sayings from the gospel.
It's not very long, so your choice would be like, okay, am I going to make a copy of Jude or the Didache? It's short, but still, paper was at a premium. Plus, cursed persecutions. So inconvenient. But the whole of the Didache comes down to a commentary on its opening line, which reflects common biblical theme. There are 2 ways, one of life and one of death. There's a great difference between the 2 ways.
Which is deep and profound.
Powerful.
Except for we've all read enough Robert Frost that we're like, so you took the lesser route, right?
And it made all the difference. But again, that's what the Christian way is. You accept the way of life or the way of death. If you accept the way of life, there are certain duties that it imposes upon you. Don't be a jerk. Love your neighbor. If you accept the way of death, well, do whatever you want. You're doomed anyway. The rest is just commentary.
Of which it has.
Didache.
So, comment
Also-
below with... Oh, go ahead.
It says it's the teachings of the 12 apostles, but there is no other claim of authorship contained in the document.
No.
At least the copy that we have from Constantinople in 1873. That's when it was found.
Anyway, comment below with another book that almost made it into the Bible that you'd like to hear us talk about.
And please, as we've already pointed out, we're not doing heretical, the ones that were left out intentionally because they were blatantly heretical. So don't bother suggesting those ones because it ain't going to happen.
We're talking books that could plausibly have been.
Yes.
And then we'll be bringing you some others. Ooh, crap. I don't think we could do First Clement because it doesn't meet one of our criteria. The author was a saint.
But see, this is a different series.
There's a
because
different series, different rules.
Technically, all 12 of the apostles that would have written this were saints. Even if it was Cliff Notes off of, like Luke and stuff, still a saint.
Still a saint. So, give this episode a like, subscribe to the channel, ring the church bell to be notified the next time we talk about a book that's not in the Bible.
And until next time, as always, remember to live your faith.
Love your faith.
Share that love.